and welcome to the Praying Wife podcast. I am your host, Corain Cash, and on this episode, I am so very thrilled to be joined by my wonderful husband, Mr. Ronnie Cash. And on today's episode, we just wanted to talk a little bit about communication. Because one thing that we have learned during our almost 15 years of marriage at this point is that marriage is awesome. Yay, wow. But it takes a lot of work. And there's just a lot of things that we've learned along the way, a lot of things that we continue to learn that we think is important to share, whether you've been married for, 1 year, 20 years, 50 years. I think even couples that have been together for 50 years can say they're still learning some things about their spouse. So we just wanted to invite you into kind of a personal discussion about a couple of things. So one of the first things that we want to talk about, and I don't know if we'll get to talk about anything else, but we'll see how it goes because this is a huge, very important topic, right? Is the topic of communication.
That's could be a tough one. It don't have to be a tough one, but it ends up being a tough one for a lot of people.
It does, because the way that we communicate varies so differently. Like there is no one size fits all when it comes to communication because you're dealing with different personality types, right? You're dealing with different backgrounds. Like my husband comes from a different background than I come from. Yes, we're both from the Bahamas. What's so funny?
No, you're correct. I'm just mentally
thinking about it. So yeah, we're both from the Bahamas, but I was raised in a single parent home. He was raised in a home with both parents, and so we both kind of came into the marriage with different expectations. I am an extrovert. She's an
extrovert.
Whatever.
She brings a lot of extra to the vert.
And he is an introvert. I know some of you would be like, no way, not this guy, right?
I am.
So that was one of the first things that we had to deal with when you have two different types of personalities. And now you are putting us in this situation where we have to experience life together and come up with a way to communicate successfully and effectively.
Yeah. First of all, being an introvert, communication wasn't my thing. I'd say hello. I would say, you answer the questions that you're asked, but speaking my mind and whatever, I wasn't much for conflict. So I would just
avoid.
That was just the way, I grew up. I grew up in a household full of screamers. That's not great, but that's where I grew up. So I learned that as an effective form of communication of screaming, hey, what are you doing? Stop that. Get out of the toilet. That's what I learned because that's what I saw every day. That's what I was. I responded well to that because that's what I grew up around. So, I figured maybe my kids will respond the same way. But she's of a different mind of
complete opposite.
Let's not scream.
Yeah.
Let's get our point across.
Yeah. Screaming accomplishes nothing. And then it breeds another generation of screamers because the same way how he heard his parents, his family do it, then he continued to do it. You're not really accomplishing much, but you're passing that down.
Are you really communicating anything? Because after someone's getting
yelled at,
they probably put up that guard, that block, and they're not going to hear. So that's also another ineffective way of communicating.
Yes.
So
the important thing is recognizing these types of behaviors and having the conversation with your spouse, like an honest, heartfelt conversation of the things that they do or the way that they communicate that doesn't really work for you, or it's not helpful, or it's not effective. You have to be honest with your spouse. You have to build that trust where you can foster complete honesty.
And on that, I would say too, and I think that's what the passive aggressive is where you just let it slide and you just...
Yeah, or say something sarcastic.
Right. I know I can probably do that, but I know a lot of people out there probably would do something like that. It's this personality type where you don't say anything when something, if it affects you or it hurts you or whatever, but you just throw little sarcastic comments out because you really have the thing built up, and then you continually letting these things go and you're not dealing with them right then and there, and then you just explode. And you don't even know what you're exploding for because it was just all the stuff built up inside of you. And the person you're doing it to is like, what?
What, yeah.
But if you communicated right at the moment, even if they say you ended up angry about it, calm your jets, cool your jets, cool your jets, and then say, hey, I wanted to talk about that thing the other day. But don't let it be, I want you to talk about the thing last month. And the thing last month really upset me.
I think one thing, not to cut you off, what you said, where it's that where you need that time to cool your jets, and I know we're kind of jumping, but this is even for a conflict resolution. If you're someone that kind of gets hot and heavy and heated very quickly, take a moment to breathe. We did this exercise with the white flag. We don't have a white flag here, but if it's something where you see or your spouse sees that you're about to get into an altercation or get into a conversation where it's getting really, really heated, you wave a white flag. Whether you have a physical white flag or you come up with a safe word, something where it's like, all right, when we hear this word or we see that white flag, we immediately stop.
Take a break.
We take a break. We take, that's it. No one says anything. You take a break, let it simmer, calm down, and then come back together and try to have the conversation in a more civilized manner. And like he said, not like the month later, okay? It's not like sweeping it under the rug and just like you're not wanting to talk about it. No, you need to address it, but you may need a couple of hours, maybe a day at max, to calm down, collect your thoughts.
And some of you out there may think the effective way of doing this would be in the middle of the argument, you walking out the room. No, that's not the way.
Yeah,
that's not the effective way. It may give you the same outcome for an instance. You may feel like, okay, I needed to just walk away from this conversation, but do your partner the diligence of letting them know, hey,
you have to communicate even in that.
Hey, this is really. I don't want to say nothing that I don't mean or anything. Just tell them, hey, like she said, wave the white flag. Just say, hey, and not meaning surrender. We're just saying, hey, we're just gonna table this.
Right.
We're gonna workshop this for a little bit. Let me
get my thoughts together. Because you more than likely there's someone in the relationship that needs time to think. Like I'm the kind of person we can have this conversation and this debate all day. Right now I'm ready. He on the other hand, he needs that time. Like he needs time to process what I'm saying, to process what's going on, to think about it, to gather his thoughts. And one thing I had to learn was to give him that space and to give him that time. So although I'm ready for him to let's talk about this now, let's deal with this now, I have learned in my love and my respect for him that he is different. His mind works differently. And so if I want to have a successful outcome, not be right, but honestly have a successful outcome to the conversation, give him that time to think so that, what he says isn't just spur of the moment without a thought. And you'll learn to appreciate that more.
Yes, a successful outcome is everyone being heard, being fully heard, as in everyone saying what's on their mind.
And I mean, to that point, again, it's important to stress when you are in a conversation that's escalating, or let's just call it what it is. If you're in an argument, it's important that your job is not to want to win the argument. There's a reason why you're getting upset. There's a problem at the core of what's going on. And so if you approach it when you're talking with your partners in a way to, I just want to speak my mind, and I just want you to know that you're wrong and I'm right, you're not going to have the outcome that you need. You're not going to experience change. What you need to learn to do is to have a conversation, talk to him or vice versa in a loving manner and listen, talk, say what's on your heart in a respectful manner, and then hear what they have to say. And don't listen to just rebut what they said. Because sometimes we do that. If we're honest, it's like a debating tactic, right? You learn to hear what the other side says, but to come back with a counter argument. And that's the exact opposite of what you want to do in a marriage when you're trying to actually affect change. You want to hear what they have to say without judgment, without defense. And honestly, just trying to say, listen, we have a problem together. How can we work together to solve this problem? Not you are my problem. You need to fix you. No, it's we have a problem. How can we work to fix and solve the problem together?
If you think about just the way men and women are. I mean, you see all these books that they had like the 5 love languages, just teaching us that, everyone has a different way they receive love. And so that means even with their communication, it's going to be in a different way compared to yours. Everyone has a different way of communicating. The next book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. Yeah. It's not trying to tell you, okay, so this is just it's always going to be this. No, it's literally it's trying to empower you to say, okay, so you guys are different. Yeah. Now let's figure out the way to gel and to get it, get the communication more, fluid between you.
Yeah, and it starts with the conversation. Like communication is, it's almost a buzzword at this point because people use it often, but it's really just a civilized conversation where both parties can feel heard, and honesty is going to be, and I go back to this, it's going to be very important because you don't want to hold anything back. I think sometimes when we communicate, we try not to hurt the other person's feelings, or we try not to make ourselves look bad, or anything like that. But what that does is open the door for deception, and not really like an intentional deception, but it's like you're just not sharing everything. So
withholding the truth.
You're withholding parts of the truth, and that part can be very important to whatever it is you're trying to solve. And so blatant honesty,
brutal honesty,
but in a loving manner, because I can be brutally honest and rude, or I can be brutally honest in love.
Yeah, just brutally as in saying all of it, getting it all out. Don't know, like she say, with withholding stuff. Sometimes someone's feelings, you might think it's gonna hurt them. Maybe it might initially hurt maybe their pride or their ego, but it may be something that they needed to hear. And you being the person who's with them the most, you're the person that needs to check them on these things. So, those conversations have to happen. But I would say always preface the conversation. You let your spouse know, hey, I want to have this conversation. It might be a tough conversation or a difficult one, but let's just go into this thing a little bit.
Let's come.
And if you're a person who's spiritual, you could bring prayer into it. I mean, we know we're both of a faith. We believe in God and we serve Him, and we know that sometimes it would be a good idea to pray, to get in a prayer with each other. Sometimes that'll just mellow you out and just calm the whole conversation even before you really get into the nitty-gritty of it.
I mean, it is important. Like you said, we're very spiritual. I don't like to say religious, but we love God and we serve Him. And it's when you have that hope and that assurance and you bring Him and invite Him into the conversation, that makes it so much easier. That makes a lot of things in life easier. Yeah, you want to make sure that you're always striving to communicate effectively with your spouse. So yeah, if you guys you usually don't see eye to eye, try that white flag, try that word, make sure, like, decide on it beforehand. So when you get into the conversation, immediately, like, I'm not just walking away like pineapples.
And then, I don't know if we mentioned this exercise on this
program. Okay, I know what you mean.
But I'm sure we mentioned on the podcast before, where literally it's just an exercise where you let one person say all that they want to say, and then you ask your spouse
to repeat back.
Now, what did you hear me say? And when they, say whatever they understood it to be, you can tell them, well, yeah, that part was right, or maybe it wasn't correct. Because like we said, the communication styles are different. Sometimes what you're saying, they're not hearing it that way.
Ooh, can we try to practice one?
Oh, this is going to be so great.
Okay, just a quick one. Let me see. Another point too, I think that's important with communicating is trying to use I and me statements, I, me, my, and not like you and your. Like, you always do this. Be like, I feel like when I hear the kids being yelled at, it really hurts my feelings, and it makes me feel like we're not fostering a safe environment for the kids. Now, what did you hear me say?
You don't like it when I yell. See? That was another good example.
But that was literally just like a playful whatever version.
No, but it could happen that way too, because sometimes when you're telling someone something that they're probably used to doing, they can put up a defense, put up a guard, and only hear whatever they think is negative out of it and not receive it.
Yeah.
So definitely that exercise is one to always put in play.
And so I would say, so come up with a safe word or a white flag if you guys tend to get heated, so like you need a second. Try just using the I, me, my statements when you're talking about, things that's bothering you about whatever is going on. And do the communication exercise, because men and women here are different. Anyone, I would say, probably, especially if you're both defensive already, your ears already kind of jaded based on what you think they're gonna say.
Yeah.
So
you're already ready to
Yeah,
retaliate.
you're already ready. So do that exercise where you talk, and both spouses, like, you have to come to this agreement. I'm going to say something. You are allowed to say nothing. When one person is speaking, the other person The only thing that's open is your ears, not your mouth. And then when they are fully done and they acknowledge, I'm done. What did you hear me say? Now is your time to repeat back exactly what you heard. And if what they say is not what you said, then you said, you're almost there, or that's not remotely close to what I said. And then you say it again, like try to say it again in a different way, and then ask them again to repeat back what I said. And you keep doing this exercise until what they say is exactly what you said.
It may take a few sit downs.
It may. And and with time, you learn your spouse. Like you learn their communication methods. Like I said, I had to get used to the fact that, he takes time to think about it. Sometimes he might message me, right, a couple of hours or however long throughout the day about it. And that used to tick me off first, because I'm the kind of person, just say it to my face. But again, I had to learn. Introvert, like for him, it's easier for him to put it down on a piece of paper and then we talk about it later. And so just learning to appreciate that. It's really extending grace. I think communication has a lot to do with just being gracious and understanding that we're all different people, and extending that grace to your spouse to say, all right, this might take me being a bit more patient. This might take me being a little bit more understanding, but I'm willing to be patient, to pull back, to hear what you say, so that again, we can come to a resolution. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Praying Wife podcast. I do pray that you were blessed. Please remember that you are beautiful, you are powerful, you are made in the image of God, and you are loved. We will see you again next time.